Thank you so much for making the time to be here. Also with us this morning is Sheikh Arimiao Shaibu, who speaks for the National Chief Imam. Sheikh, Assalamu alaikum to you.
Wa alaikum assalam. Good morning to my friends here.
Good morning. Good to see you, Sheikh. Good to see you.
Yes, just when you were seated, the Honorable Samuel Okuditu Ablakwa talks about the contribution of the Chief Imam to also the relief efforts in Mepe specifically. Thank you for making the time to be here.
Thank you.
Bobby Banson is private legal practitioner. Is also joining us on Zoom. Well, Bobby Banson, good morning.
Good morning, Alfred. Hope you can hear me.
I can hear you very, very well and clear, and I can see you as well. Thank you very much for joining us this morning. So let's take a listen again, specifically to what the president said to the diplomatic community within the week about this anti-LGBTQ plus bill, which has been approved by Parliament. Take a look.
I'm aware that last week's bipartisan passage by Parliament of the Proper Human Sexual Rights and Ghanaian Family Values Bill on a private member's motion has raised considerable anxieties in certain quarters of the diplomatic community and among some friends of Ghana that she may be turning her back on her hitherto enviable, long-standing record on human rights observance and attachment to the rule of law. I want to assure you that no such backsliding will be contemplated or occasioned. I think it will serve little purpose to go at this stage into the details of the origin of this proposed law, which is yet to reach my desk. But suffice it to say that I have learned that today a challenge has been mounted at the Supreme Court by a concerned citizen to the constitutionality of the proposed legislation. In the circumstances, it would be as well for all of us to hold our hands and await the decision of the court before any action is taken.
So that's President Akufo-Addo there. Now, some aspects of this speech gives indicators or pointers of what is going to be happening in the coming days about the origin of this bill, which has been approved by Parliament, and then also the fact that whatever happens, we're not going to slide on our human rights record as a country. And those are the issues that the persons who are opposed to this bill have been raising as to how this impacts on our human rights record as a country. Now, let me start off with you, Dr. Enoch Antwi, on this matter, because I know Professor Enoch Antwi, forgive me. I know over the period since 2017, you have been engaging the likes of the proponents of this bill.
Yes.
Over the period. Now, if you hear the concerns specifically that have been raised and the indicators that the president also gives, now, what should be the focus of leadership in addressing the issue so as not to have this bill passed into law and then we have a lot to deal with when it comes to lawsuits?
Thank you, Alfred. I think that from 2017, like you said, I met Moses Fuamwani and Dr. Apia Kubi, who was then the dean at the Dominion University College. And we met at Adom Radio and we're talking about that. Perhaps I'm one of the few people in this country who know a lot about this because I thought diversity in US for a long time. And when we're talking about pieces of it, now even as I write emails in US, I have to put my pronoun. It's he, him, his, or she, her, hers, because you have to state your pronoun for students to know where you stand. Other than that, you will be charged for microaggression.
Microaggression?
Microaggression.
What does that mean?
Microaggression means that you are being aggressive towards one's, sexual orientation.
I see.
So you have to state your pronoun in every email that you write. So these things that we are talking about here, I don't know why we did not bring in the experts to talk about it, but I'm glad that I'm here. everything in politics, when we talk about leadership, is about framing. So we have to talk about policies should be framed in a way which is moral. And the policy should also be framed in a way which is moral. I like the way this bill was framed. The human sexual rights and family values. So what is our values as a people? And sometimes I hear a lot of people say this person is an NDC, this person is an MPP. It doesn't matter. My hero in politics is John McCain. And John McCain, who was, a senator from Arizona, he was a prisoner of war. He was a Republican. But any time that there was a bill in Parliament that he disapproves of it, he votes against it. That is me. So it doesn't matter whether one belongs to an NDC or MPP. We should say the facts, because the facts always stand tall. Now, I've seen a lot of individuals coming with a lot of things. So let's talk about the LGBT. As I speak now, even we know the lesbians, the gays, the transgenders, and then others. But queer people and the intersex people, we are still researching on that, even in the US. There was a lady in Minnesota who was pregnant for 9 months, had a baby, and then the guy said that he's not a father. So they did a DNA test. When the results came in, the guy was the father, but the woman who carried the baby in her womb for 9 months was not the mother. The woman who carried the baby in her womb for 9 months was not the mother of the child. Intersex. So it's a very complicated thing that when you are talking about these issues, you will see that there are a lot of ambiguities, and that is when lawyers come in. And I understand perfectly how this works. One day I was teaching diversity, and a student came to me and asked me, Prof, do you know how we orient? It's not that a gay person loves any person they meet, but they meet somebody the same way that a man meets a woman and then you love. They also meet somebody and then they love that person. And they asked me about my opinion. And I told them that, well, I don't have any problem with somebody's orientation. But for me, with all the beautiful women around, why would I orient towards another man? Okay. That was my opinion, and that's how I was able to save myself. So let me put this in this perspective. A bill is initiated by individuals or a group. Now, if you look at this bill, it was sponsored by traditional and religious leaders, right? So traditional and religious leaders of this country sponsored this bill.
In fact, they supported it. So
they supported it, and they initiated the idea.
7 members of parliament.
Yes.
Including one MPP MP.
Yes.
This is Reverend Tim Fojo, who is a deputy education minister.
Yes, and he's a reverend as such.
Yes, and then Sam George, and then Nelson Ross and Dafiamepo.
Benjra Delasowa.
Yes, Delasowa.
So the title of that, Proper Human Sexual Rights, that in this country, Ghana is a sovereign country. This is properly how we should orient our sexes. Now, I am an Adventist. And my grandmother who raised me was an apostolic. Anytime, any Saturday that I go to church, my grandmother would tell me that he who feeds you controls you. So if I want to be independent, then I need to work to feed myself. I have found it interesting that the international community is coming in to tell us that, well, you can pass this law. Even though you seem to be a sovereign nation, you can pass this law. And we have the Ministry of Finance coming to tell us that you will lose over $3.8 billion if you pass this law. So analysts and intellectuals are saying that the president might not be able to pass this law until he leaves office. And I like the topic that you put there, that there's pressure mounting on the president. So let's go quickly to the nitty-gritty so that my colleagues can also say what they want to say. Anytime a law is passed, it's going through, this is not a law yet, it's a bill. It's gone through the stages, the committee stages, and it's come to both houses have passed it. It's a bipartisan law. It's a bill that has been passed. All that the president will have to do is to assent to it. We have Article 106 of our 1992 Constitution that talks about the time period that the president is supposed to assent to bills. And we also know that individuals have sent this to the Supreme Court challenging the constitutionality of this. Now, I belong to some organization in the US that I was about to stand for a mayor in Cincinnati, and Center for Progressive Leadership, which is a democratic organization. And this very law is the reason why I did not contest for mayor in Cincinnati, Ohio. So I understand very well We call it Proposition 18. And you know that Obama was the only president who publicly talked about LGBT, and it did not affect his polling in the polls. So when we met in Cleveland for 6 months, this issue came up. And I remember some guys coming to meet me at Clifton, Ohio, asking me that, you see, you need to assent to this, you need to agree to this. And I said that my values are different, so I cannot be part of it. Now, when this whole thing started, this is what happened. They were using kids, children, and the children would say that you cannot separate our parents. And I said that, look, if two adults are doing their own thing, you don't bring children in, as a commercial that you can't separate them. Now, like I said, I'm a very conservative Adventist. I go to parent-teacher conference, and you have a child who has two parents. One is a mother, one is a father. The two of them are males. They come and say, this is my mother, this is my father. To me, you are confusing these children. Because two men are coming to parent-teacher conferences and saying that I am the mother, and one is saying that I'm the father. So is that our values? I am making a point that everything in leadership should be framed in the terms of your morals, your values. So we have some coalition. And the coalition is saying that, what is the name? The Human Rights Coalition. That's the big 18. They are saying that you cannot criminalize somebody's identity.
No, sexual orientation.
Sexual orientation. Now, sexual orientation, we should educate people. One thing that I've seen with Joy and TV3 is that about 80% of Ghanaians listen to the Chi stations. And
well, that may be relatively subjective.
Well,
based on the data.
I use the word about. Remember, I'm a professor, so when I use words...
But that may not be the case. Yes, but...
All right,
I
you
only
do
speak
your
to
research.
data.
You do
Yes,
your research
yes.
and then come out with the proper numbers, and then we see. So when we have a lot of Ghanaian voters who, like the Chi language, then it means that when I come to sit here, yes, I can talk intellectually, but how do I soften it to the level of every Ghanaian who will understand what I'm speaking, which is common sense. And that is where wisdom comes in. So wisdom is the practical theory that, the theory that we use in practical way to understand things. So two things we do in academia. We can let the theory inform the practice, or we can also let the practice inform the theory.
Right.
Things that we practice every day, we can make a theory out of it. Okay. And things that we have theory, we can make it practical. So I am going to end this way. They say that you cannot criminalize somebody's sexual identity. Growing up, I went to Koforidua at Ghana Senior High School. And then I went to Opokuwari for 6th form. And then I was at University of Cape Coast. We knew guys who behaved like women, right? We knew guys who talk and walk like women. Sometimes we call them Obaya and some names. But nobody bothered them. From the 1992 Constitution and the laws that we had, nobody bothered these people. We knew they had more estrogens. They had more female tendencies, or some of the men had more, some of the ladies had more male tendencies. But there was nothing about that until pressure began to mount on our leaders about passing this law. Now, if America is okay with it, and remember the way Americans passed this law, it wasn't the Congress, because America started Proposition 18 from California. And Proposition 18 from California meant that the whole state had to vote yes or no for LGBT. And the first time, the state voted no. So when people sit here and say that Americans like LGBT, it is not every American who agrees to LGBTQ. And the reason is that when the Proposition 18 states, because in that constitution, so America have their own constitution, you are supposed to go out of the 50 states, 25 of the states will have to vote. And then when we get half of it, then we'll go on a referendum for people to vote yes or no. Now, the first state voted no. So they went to Congress, and the House and then the Senate, they all failed. So what Obama did was to go to the Supreme Court. Now, I am building this point for Ghanaians to educate people, because education is part of every solution. When it went to the Supreme Court, the framers of American Constitution knew that the weakest wing of all the three arms is the judiciary. Why? Because you have only 9 people. If you're able to convince just 5 out of the 9, you pass. So Obama went straight to the Supreme Court, and we had 5 out of the 9 passing it. So Americans woke up one day and gay was passed. So you have to make adjustment to it. We're thinking about, even at the university, how to make provision for the urinals and the bathrooms, because you can't put male and female and then transgender there. So now I asked my student, what do we do? And then they told me that, Prof, you know what? At the end of the month, you will know whether you were a male or a female.
Okay.